The MH-47 Chinook carved through the blizzard like a wounded bird, its twin rotors churning snowflakes into horizontal sheets of white. Inside the cargo bay, 12 operators from SEAL Team 7 sat in disciplined silence, their faces hidden behind balaclavas and night vision mounts. The temperature gauge read -18 Celsius, but with wind chill, it felt closer to -30. Commander Blake pressed his gloved finger against the tactical display, tracing the insertion point with practiced precision. The mission brief had been clear. Extract diplomat Richard Harmon from a Taliban compound in the Hindu Kush Mountains. Intelligence suggested 15 to 20 hostiles. The thermal imaging told a different story. "Sir, I'm counting at least 40 heat signatures," Lieutenant Chen reported, his voice crackling through the internal comms. "This doesn't match the intel packet." Blake's jaw tightened. 24 hours earlier, on Christmas Eve, they'd received word that Harmon had been moved from Kabul to this remote location. The window for extraction was closing fast. Tomorrow, the Taliban would relocate him again, possibly across the Pakistani border where American forces couldn't follow. The loadmaster signaled 2 minutes to landing. Blake turned to address his team, then paused. Sitting at the rear of the cargo bay, dwarfed by tactical gear twice her size, was a figure that didn't belong. Ava Reyes looked like she should be studying for algebra tests, not preparing to provide overwatch for the most elite fighting force in the world. At 15, she stood barely 5'3", her dark hair pulled back in a tight braid beneath a watch cap. The TAC 338 sniper rifle across her lap was nearly as long as she was tall. "Listen up," Blake announced. "We have long-range support for this operation. This is Ava Reyes, on loan from Langley. She'll be providing precision fire from elevated positions." The reaction was immediate. Snickers rippled through the team. Petty Officer Jackson leaned toward his partner. "She's 15? Did someone's daughter get lost on Take Your Kid to Work Day?" More laughter. Ava didn't flinch. She'd heard worse during her 6 months at the CIA training facility in Virginia. Her fingers moved methodically across the rifle's scope, adjusting for altitude and expected wind speeds. The Barrett TAC 338 was chambered in. 338 Lapua Magnum, capable of engaging targets beyond 1,500 meters. In the right hands, visibility's going to be 20 meters, max. Petty Officer Rodriguez muttered. "What's a kid going to spot that our thermals can't?" Blake held up a hand for silence, though he shared their skepticism. The orders had come from high enough up the chain that questioning them wasn't an option. Asset designation: Sierra 7. Specialty: extreme long-range precision fire in adverse conditions. The file hadn't mentioned her age. The Chinook lurched as it descended through the final 1,000 feet. Ava checked her gear one last time. Range finder, wind meter, ballistic calculator, and a small hand mirror tucked into her chest pocket. The mirror was scratched and bent at one corner, clearly old. A gift from another time. 30 seconds, the loadmaster shouted. The SEALs stood, weapons ready. Ava rose last, the rifle slung across her back in a custom harness that distributed the weight across her shoulders. She moved to the ramp, where snow and darkness waited beyond. Blake grabbed her shoulder as they prepared to exit. "Stay behind us. Don't engage unless I give explicit authorization. Understood?" Ava met his eyes. "Yes, sir." But there was something in her gaze that unsettled him. Not defiance, exactly, more like quiet certainty. The look of someone who'd already seen too much. The ramp dropped. The team flowed out into the whiteout, boots crunching on snow that had buried the abandoned Soviet-era base beneath 3 feet of powder. The Chinook's engine screamed as it pulled away, leaving them in sudden, profound silence. Blake hand-signaled the formation. The compound was 200 meters northeast, nestled against a cliff face. According to satellite imagery, the main structure was a 3-story concrete building, half collapsed, with a maze of connected outbuildings. Ava moved to the rear of the formation, scanning for elevated positions. The tree line to the west offered possibilities, but the angles were wrong. She needed height and clearance. Movement. 11 o'clock, Chen whispered into the radio. The team froze. Through the falling snow, shadows shifted near a burnt-out vehicle chassis. Too many shadows. I count 6 hostiles, maybe more behind them, Rodriguez reported. Ava's hand moved to her rangefinder. 800 meters. Wind coming from the northwest at 15 kilometers per hour, gusting to 25. She calculated the ballistic drop in her head, a skill her father had drilled into her through endless practice sessions. "Sir," she whispered into her radio, "request permission to establish overwatch position." "Negative," Blake replied immediately. "Hold position." The shadows ahead multiplied. What had been 6 became 12, then 20. The thermal scopes painted them in shades of red and orange against the white landscape. "This is a setup," Jackson muttered. "We're walking into an ambush." He was right, Ava realized. The compound wasn't a holding facility. It was a kill zone. 3 years ago, when Ava was 12, her father had given her the hand mirror as a Christmas present, not for vanity, but for survival. Master Sergeant David Reyes had been a legend in Delta Force, a sniper instructor who'd trained 2 generations of operators. His specialty was teaching unconventional shooting techniques, the kind that saved lives when technology failed and conditions turned hostile. "A mirror can save your life," he told her that Christmas morning at their training facility in North Carolina. "It can check corners, signal aircraft, and most importantly, it can deceive an enemy sniper. Make them think they've spotted your scope glint when you're actually 3 feet to the left." Ava had grown up on military bases, homeschooled between her father's deployments. While other children learned multiplication tables, she learned mil-dot ranging. While they played video games, she practiced holdovers and windage corrections. It wasn't abuse. David Reyes loved his daughter completely. But after her mother died in a car accident when Ava was 7, he channeled his grief into preparing her for a dangerous world. He taught her to shoot, to think, to survive. The talent came naturally. Ava's eyesight tested at 28s, meaning she could see at 20 feet what most people saw at 8. Her hand-eye coordination placed her in the 99th percentile. But more than physical gifts, she possessed an almost supernatural ability to read wind and distance, to feel the subtle shifts in air pressure that affected bullet trajectory. At 13, she could consistently hit targets at 800 meters. At 14, she'd extended that to 1,200 meters. The CIA had started paying attention. Then came last Christmas, December 23rd, to be exact. David Reyes had been providing overwatch for a hostage rescue operation in Yemen. The mission was supposed to be straightforward: extract an aid worker from an Al-Qaeda compound. But intelligence had been compromised. The SEALs had walked into a coordinated ambush. David had held his position for 40 minutes, providing covering fire while the team extracted under heavy contact. He'd saved 11 lives that day. The 12th shot, the one aimed at him, came from a sniper he hadn't spotted in the chaos. The CIA officer who delivered the news to Ava hadn't sugarcoated it. "Your father died doing what he did best, protecting others." They'd also made her an offer. The agency needed someone with her skills, someone who could operate in situations where a conventional military sniper would draw attention, someone overlooked, underestimated. "You can honor his memory," the officer had said, "or you can let his sacrifice mean nothing." Ava had chosen to honor it. 6 months of intensive training followed. Not basic skills, she already possessed those. Instead, they taught her tradecraft, communications, how to read tactical situations. The psychologists worried about her age, but the field operatives who worked with her came away impressed. The girl was cold under pressure, methodical, patient. When the tasking order for Afghanistan came through, Ava had volunteered immediately. Not for glory or revenge, but because the mission brief had 3 words that stopped her heart: Christmas Day extraction. She wouldn't let another team lose someone on Christmas. Not if she could prevent it. The memory of her father's funeral played through her mind as she crouched in the Afghan snow, the flag-draped coffin, the rifle salute. The way the commanding officer had looked at her with something between pity and respect. "Your father always said you were the best natural shot he'd ever seen," the officer had told her. "Prove him right." Tonight, she would. The SEAL team advanced in a staggered line formation, weapons raised, each operator covering a designated sector. The snow deadened sound, turning the world into a muffled white void where threats could emerge from any direction. Ava followed 20 meters behind, her boots sinking into powder with each step. Through her scope, she tracked the thermal signatures ahead. The numbers kept climbing, 30 hostiles now, 40. This wasn't a guarding force. This was an entire Taliban unit, reinforced and waiting. "Commander," she transmitted quietly. "The heat signatures show a company-sized element, at least 60 combatants, possibly more in the buildings." Blake's response was terse. "Copy. Maintain radio silence unless you have critical intelligence." Translation: "The adults are handling this." Ava bit back her frustration. She'd seen this pattern in training exercises, experienced operators who couldn't accept that valuable intelligence might come from someone who looked like she should be worried about homecoming dances. The team reached the first structure, a half-collapsed garage with rusted vehicles scattered around it. Chen and Rodriguez moved to clear it, while the others provided security. The building was empty, but the tactical situation was deteriorating. "Sir, we need to reconsider the approach," Lieutenant Patterson said. "If they've got this many people, they know we're coming." Blake studied his tactical display, weighing options. Pull back and request air support? That would take hours, and Harmon might not have hours. Push forward and risk walking into a prepared ambush? The math wasn't favorable. Ava saw it before anyone else. 800 meters upslope, barely visible through the snowfall, a figure moved into position behind a low stone wall. The posture was unmistakable, a soldier preparing to shoulder a weapon, not a rifle. Something heavier. "RPG gunner, Northern Ridgeline," she transmitted urgently. 800 meters, 10 degrees right of the main structure. "I don't see anything," Jackson replied. "Trust me," Ava insisted. "He's about to fire." Blake hesitated. The girl could be seeing things. The weather was terrible, visibility near zero, but something in her voice carried certainty. "All elements. Find hard cover," he ordered. The SEALs scattered. 3 seconds later, a rocket-propelled grenade streaked through the falling snow, impacting the burnt vehicle chassis they'd been using for cover. The explosion was massive, sending shrapnel singing through the air. "Contact north," Chen shouted. A second RPG followed, then a third. The Taliban had revealed their ambush, and it was devastating. The SEALs were pinned against a low wall, unable to advance or retreat without exposing themselves to the high ground. "We need to take out those RPG positions," Blake shouted. Jackson, Rodriguez, suppressing fire. The two operators opened up with their HK-416 rifles, but the range was too great for effective fire. The snow swallowed their tracers. Ava made her decision. Without waiting for authorization, she low-crawled away from the main group, heading for a cluster of pine trees 30 meters west. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Sometimes the right thing to do is the thing they'll court-martial you for. But you'll be alive to face the court-martial." The snow soaked through her jacket as she crawled. The TAC-338 dragged behind her, its weight distributed through the sling. 40 meters, 50. The pine trees loomed ahead, their branches heavy with snow. She slipped between two trunks, finding a natural depression that provided both cover and a clear line of sight to the ridgeline. The position wasn't perfect. She was exposed on her right flank, but it offered the angle she needed. Ava deployed the rifle's bipod, settling into a prone shooting position. Through the scope, she acquired the first target. An RPG gunner, partially concealed behind stacked stones, preparing to fire again. Range, 823 meters. Wind, northwest at 20 kilometers per hour, gusting unpredictably. Temperature, -20 Celsius. She'd need to account for air density, the Coriolis effect at this latitude, even the fact that her barrel was cold and would heat with each shot. The calculations flowed through her mind in seconds, muscle memory and training combining into instinct. She adjusted the scope's turrets, accounting for bullet drop and wind drift. Breathe in, breathe out, find the natural respiratory pause. Her finger took up the trigger slack. The rifle bucked against her shoulder, the suppressor reducing the report to a sharp crack that was instantly swallowed by wind and distance. Through the scope, she watched the RPG gunner collapse. RPG position 1 is down, she transmitted calmly. Acquiring second target. The second gunner was scrambling for his weapon. Ava tracked him smoothly, leading his movement by half a body width. The second shot took him in the upper chest. He fell backward into the snow. Position 2 down. Engaging position 3. The third target was more difficult. He'd realized his team was under sniper fire and dropped behind cover. Ava could see only his elbow and part of his knee. Not enough for a clean shot. She waited, breathing slowly, watching. 10 seconds passed. 20. The man shifted, trying to get a better angle on the seals below. As he moved, his head rose above the wall for just a fraction of a second. Ava fired. The bullet entered through his left eye. All RPG positions neutralized, she reported. The radio was silent for 3 full seconds. Then Blake's voice came through, carrying a note of disbelief. Sierra 7, confirm you just took out 3 targets at 800 meters in a blizzard. Confirmed, sir. The approach is clear. Another pause. Then, outstanding shooting. Hold your position and provide overwatch. Ava allowed herself a small smile. Maybe they were starting to understand. The SEALs advanced again, moving more confidently now that the immediate threat was neutralized. But Ava's instincts were screaming warnings. The Taliban had revealed their ambush too early. Professional fighters didn't make that kind of mistake unless they had a backup plan. She scanned the compound through her scope, looking for what she was missing. The main building dominated the center, its windows dark and empty. Too empty. The thermal signatures she'd seen earlier had dispersed, spreading to flanking positions. They were being herded. Commander, I recommend holding position, she transmitted. The enemy is repositioning for a secondary ambush. Noted, Blake replied, but the team continued advancing. They were committed now, too close to the objective to pull back. Ava shifted her aim to the eastern flank, where shadows moved between buildings. Through the scope, she could make out figures in winter camouflage, carrying AK-47 seconds and PKM machine guns. They were setting up a crossfire. The SEALs reached the compound's outer wall. Chen placed a breaching charge on the metal gate. 3, 2, 1. The explosion blew the gate inward, and the team flooded through. Immediately, muzzle flashes erupted from 3 directions. The Taliban had waited until the SEALs were fully committed, then opened fire from prepared positions. Contact left. Contact right. We're taking fire from the second floor. The radio dissolved into controlled chaos as the team engaged multiple threats simultaneously. Blake had been right to worry. This wasn't a hostage situation. This was a calculated trap, and they'd walked right into it. Ava went to work. Her scope found a machine gunner on a rooftop, sweeping fire across the courtyard where the SEALs were pinned. Range, 645 meters. She compensated for the slightly shorter distance, adjusted for wind, and fired. The gunner dropped. A fighter emerged from a doorway, raising an RPG launcher toward the SEAL position. Ava's second shot caught him before he could fire, the rocket detonating harmlessly against the wall behind him. "Sniper on the northeast tower," Jackson shouted. "He just dropped Martinez." Ava swung her scope toward the tower, a crumbling minaret that rose above the main compound. She could see the muzzle flash, see the shooter's profile as he tracked another target. This one was different. The way he moved, the deliberate pace of his shooting, marked him as professional, not Taliban militia, someone with formal training. She fired, missed. The bullet impacted 6 inches left of her aim point, the wind having shifted unpredictably. The enemy sniper immediately went to ground, recognizing the threat. For several seconds, neither shooter moved. Then Ava saw it, a glint of reflected light from his scope. He was scanning for her position. She reached into her chest pocket and pulled out her father's mirror. Holding it at an angle, she let the faint moonlight catch its surface, creating a brief flash 50 feet to her right. The enemy sniper took the bait. His muzzle flash revealed his position as he fired at the false target. Ava was already squeezing her trigger. The shot was perfect, hitting him center mass. He tumbled from the tower. "Tower sniper eliminated," she reported. "How's Martinez?" "Flesh wound," Rodriguez answered. "He'll live, thanks to you." The firefight continued for another 10 minutes, but with Ava providing precision overwatch, the momentum shifted. Every time a Taliban fighter tried to maneuver against the SEALs, she was there. Every time they tried to establish a machine gun position, she neutralized it. By the time the shooting stopped, she'd fired 14 rounds. 12 kills, confirmed. Blake's voice came through the radio, businesslike but carrying a new tone of respect. "Sierra 7. Outstanding work. We're moving to the target building. Maintain overwatch and call out any threats." "Copy that, sir." As the SEALs breached the main structure, Ava tracked them through her scope, providing guardian angel coverage. These men had mocked her 90 minutes ago. Now their lives depended on her accuracy. She wouldn't let them down. The SEAL team moved through the compound building by building, clearing rooms with practiced efficiency. But Ava's attention was drawn to something else. Through her scope, she'd caught movement on the far ridgeline, another sniper position being established. This one was different from the others, more methodical, more professional. "Commander, I have a probable sniper position, northwest ridge, approximately 1,100 meters, she transmitted. "Can you neutralize?" Blake asked. "Working on it." The distant figure was barely visible through the falling snow. Ava could make out only the vaguest outline, someone prone behind a rock formation, something dark and cylindrical extending forward. A rifle, a serious one, judging by its length. She checked her ballistic calculator. 1,100 meters. In perfect conditions, the TAC 338 could reach out that far reliably. But these weren't perfect conditions. The wind was gusting unpredictably. The snow was reducing visibility to almost nothing, and she was shooting at a target who knew exactly what he was doing. Through her scope, she saw the enemy sniper's rifle swivel, tracking toward the SEAL position. He was preparing to take a shot. Ava fired first, aiming high to account for the extreme distance. The bullet kicked up snow 30 feet short of the target. The enemy immediately shifted position, recognizing he was under counter-sniper fire. For the next several minutes, neither shooter could gain an advantage. The range was too great, the conditions too poor. Ava would fire, forcing her opponent to move. He would return fire, rounds cracking past her position. It was a deadly dance, two professionals testing each other's limits. Then the enemy sniper made his move. He shifted to a new position with a better angle on the SEALs, clearly intending to engage them regardless of the threat Ava posed. She couldn't allow that. Ava remembered her father's words from years ago. When conventional tactics fail, use unconventional ones. A sniper isn't just a shooter. A sniper is a problem solver. She pulled out the hand mirror again, studying the battlefield. The moon was hidden behind clouds, but there was ambient light from the snow itself, enough to create faint reflections. She adjusted the mirror's angle, catching the light and directing it toward a point 20 feet to her left. The enemy sniper saw the glint. His rifle swiveled toward it. Ava had already adjusted her aim. She wasn't shooting at where he was. She was shooting at where he would be when he turned to engage the false target. She held her breath, feeling the wind against her face. The gust was dying down, creating a brief window of calmer air. She squeezed the trigger during that window, trusting her calculations, trusting her instincts. The bullet traveled for nearly 3 seconds before impact. Through her scope, Ava saw the enemy sniper jerk backward, the rifle tumbling from his hands. "Target down," she whispered. The radio crackled. "Sierra 7, was that you shooting at 1,100 meters?" It was Jackson, his earlier mockery completely absent from his voice. "Confirmed." "Jesus Christ," someone muttered. "That's a competition-level shot, in a blizzard." Blake's voice cut through. "Less chatter. We've located the hostage, preparing to extract." Ava swept her scope across the compound one more time, checking for additional threats. The immediate area was clear, but she could see heat signatures in the valley below, reinforcements moving up the mountain. The Taliban weren't giving up. "Sir, you have approximately 15 minutes before a large force reaches your position," she reported. "I count 30 to 40 hostiles, moving in from the south." "Understood." Expediting extraction. Through her scope, Ava watched the SEALs emerge from the main building with Richard Harmon between them. The diplomat looked rough, bruised, limping, but alive. The team moved quickly toward the extraction point, a clearing 200 meters east where the Chinook could land. That's when the Taliban commander made his appearance. He emerged from a concealed bunker at the compound's edge, flanked by 2 bodyguards. But it wasn't him that Ava noticed first. It was the person he was dragging. A young Afghan girl, maybe 10 years old, clearly terrified. "Contact! Commander has a hostage," Chen shouted. The Taliban leader positioned himself behind the girl, using her as a human shield while he retreated toward the tree line. His bodyguards provided covering fire, keeping the SEALs pinned down. "I can't get a shot," Jackson radioed. "He's completely behind the girl." Blake's voice was grim. "We cannot let him escape with that hostage. Sierra 7, do you have an angle?" Ava tracked them through her scope. The commander was smart, keeping the girl between himself and any potential shooter. But he'd made one mistake. To move effectively through the deep snow, he occasionally had to shift her to his side rather than directly in front. The window would be tiny, maybe half a second, and she'd be shooting through pine branches that could deflect her bullet unpredictably. "I have a possible shot," Ava transmitted. "But it's high risk. If I miss or the bullet deflects, I could hit the girl." "What's your confidence level?" Blake asked. Ava thought about her father, about the 11 SEALs he'd saved by taking a shot when he wasn't certain of the outcome, about the little mirror in her pocket, the last gift he'd ever given her. 60%, she said honestly. The radio was silent. 60% meant a 40% chance of killing an innocent child. Those weren't acceptable odds. "Hold your fire," Blake ordered. "We'll pursue on foot." But Ava was still watching through her scope. The Taliban commander was moving toward a ravine that would give him cover. If he reached it, they'd never find him in this terrain. The girl would disappear into the same nightmare that had claimed so many others. Then Ava saw something that changed the calculation. The commander's grip on the girl's shoulder. He wasn't just using her as a shield. His hand was positioned exactly on the pressure point, where shoulder met neck, a control hold designed to cause pain and compliance. If he'd been simply dragging her, his grip would have been on her arm or clothing. That hand position meant something. It meant he was expecting resistance. It meant he was prepared to hurt her if she tried to escape. And it meant Ava had a target that wasn't the girl's body. "Commander, I'm taking the shot," Ava transmitted. "Negative. Stand down." But Ava was already squeezing the trigger. The bullet traveled 890 meters through falling snow, through pine branches, through air that seemed determined to push it off course. It struck exactly where Ava had aimed, the Taliban commander's right wrist, where his hand gripped the girl's shoulder. The impact shattered bone. The commander's hand released involuntarily, and the girl immediately dropped and rolled away, just as Ava had gambled she would. The bodyguards, caught by surprise, turned toward the threat. Engaging secondary targets, Ava said calmly, already tracking the first bodyguard. 2 more shots. 2 more hits. The bodyguards fell. The commander was on his knees, clutching his shattered wrist, screaming in pain and rage. Rodriguez reached him seconds later, securing him with zip ties. The little girl was pulled to safety by Chen, who wrapped her in his jacket and carried her toward the extraction point. Blake's voice came through the radio, tight with emotion. Sierra 7. That was either the best shot I've ever seen or the luckiest. I'm genuinely not sure which. Neither, sir, Ava replied quietly. It was the necessary shot. The Chinook descended through the blizzard 20 minutes later, its rotors whipping snow into a blinding vortex. The SEAL team loaded quickly. Harmon, the rescued Afghan girl, the wounded Martinez, and the captured Taliban commander. As they prepared to board, Blake approached Ava. She was field stripping her rifle with numb fingers, preparing it for transport. That wrist shot, he said. How did you know the girl would drop? I didn't know for certain, Ava admitted, but I saw how he was holding her. That's a pain compliance hold. When you break the bone, the grip releases involuntarily. The human body can't maintain muscle tension through that kind of trauma. I was betting she'd have the instinct to get away from danger. And if you'd missed by 2 inches? I didn't miss. Blake studied her in the darkness. Your file says you're 15. It doesn't say you're one of the best snipers I've ever worked with. Ava finished reassembling the rifle. The file also doesn't say my father died on a mission exactly like this one. Last Christmas. He was providing overwatch for a SEAL team in Yemen. Understanding dawned on Blake's face. Master Sergeant David Reyes. He saved 11 operators in that firefight. He did. And I wasn't going to let you become the 12th casualty he couldn't prevent. The other SEALs had gathered around, listening. Jackson stepped forward, pulling something from his vest. It was a SEAL Team 7 patch, the one they wore on their right shoulders. Kid, regulations say we can't officially give you this, he said. But, unofficially, you earned it tonight. 12 confirmed kills, 0 friendly casualties. That's a better ratio than most of us achieve in a career. He pressed the patch into her hand. One by one, the other SEALs came forward, each offering a word of respect, a handshake, a nod of acknowledgement. Ava felt something break inside her chest, a wall she'd built around her grief, her anger, her loneliness. Tears came, hot against her frozen cheeks. My dad used to say snipers don't cry, she whispered. Your dad was wrong about that, Blake said gently. The best ones do. It means they remember that every trigger pull matters, that every life, including the ones they take, has weight. Chen emerged from the Chinook carrying the little Afghan girl, who'd been checked by the team's medic. She was frightened but uninjured. She keeps asking who saved her, Chen said. I told her an angel in the snow. The girl looked at Ava and smiled, despite everything she'd been through. Ava smiled back, wondering if her father had felt this way after saving those 11 SEALs. This strange mixture of exhaustion and purpose, grief and hope. As they boarded the helicopter, Rodriguez sat down next to Ava. So what happens now? You go back to high school and pretend you spent Christmas break doing normal teenager things? I don't know, Ava admitted. The CIA hasn't told me what's next. Well, when you turn 18, if you want a place among us, the door's open. We could use someone with your skills. Hell, we could use someone with your instincts. The Chinook lifted off, banking away from the compound. Below, the snow was already covering their tracks, erasing evidence of the night's violence. By morning, the battlefield would look pristine again, as if nothing had happened. But Ava would remember. She'd remember every shot, every decision, every life saved and taken. As they flew through the Christmas morning darkness, heading back to base, Ava pulled out her father's mirror. Its scratched surface reflected her own face, older somehow than it had been 12 hours ago. "I kept them safe, Dad," she whispered. "Just like you taught me." The SEAL team was quiet around her, each man lost in his own thoughts. Combat did that, forced you inward, made you confront who you were and what you'd done. But there was also camaraderie in that silence, a shared understanding that needed no words. Jackson broke the quiet with a question. "Sierra 7, what was your longest shot tonight?" 1,134 meters, Ava replied. "The counter-sniper on the northwest ridge, in a blizzard, with wind gusts up to 30 kilometers per hour." He shook his head in disbelief. "That shouldn't be possible. My father used to say that impossible is just possible, that hasn't been done yet." Blake looked at her thoughtfully. "Your father trained you well, but he also gave you something more important than skills. He gave you judgment. You knew when to take the shot and when to hold fire. That's what separates good snipers from great ones." "I almost killed that little girl," Ava said quietly. "If the wind had shifted, if my calculations had been off by a few inches. But they weren't. You made the right call under impossible pressure. That takes courage. Or insanity," Jackson added with a slight smile. "Probably both." The tension broke, and tired laughter rippled through the cabin. Even Ava smiled, though her hands were still shaking slightly as the adrenaline drained from her system. Dawn was breaking over Bagram Airfield when they landed. The Christmas morning sky was clear, a sharp contrast to the blizzard they'd left behind in the mountains. Ground crews rushed to meet the helicopter, medical personnel ready to treat the wounded. As they disembarked, a figure in civilian clothes approached. Ava recognized him immediately. Thomas Crawford, her handler from the CIA. "Merry Christmas," he said dryly. "I hear you made quite an impression." "The mission was successful," Ava replied, defaulting to formal language. Crawford glanced at the SEAL team, who were being debriefed by their command staff. Blake sent preliminary reports. 12 confirmed kills, 1 hostage rescued, 1 high-value target captured, 0 friendly casualties. "The brass is very pleased." "What happens now?" "Now?" Crawford studied her carefully. "Now you go home, back to Virginia, back to being a 15-year-old kid for a while." "I'm not a kid anymore," Ava said. "No," Crawford agreed. "You're not. But you deserve a chance to be one, at least for a little while longer. The agency will be here when you're ready to come back." Blake approached, having finished his debrief. "Mr. Crawford, I'd like to speak with you about Sierra 7's future deployment options." "She's 15, Crawford reminded him. "I'm aware. But age aside, she's one of the most naturally gifted snipers I've encountered in 20 years of special operations. Her instincts are remarkable, her skills are exceptional, and her judgment under pressure is better than operators twice her age." Crawford looked at Ava. "Is this what you want? To keep doing this?" Ava thought about her father, about the 11 men he'd saved, about the little Afghan girl who'd smiled at her despite everything, about the SEAL Team 7 patch now tucked in her pocket. "My father used to say that talent without purpose is just potential," she said. "He gave me the talent. Tonight, I found the purpose." "That's not really an answer," Crawford observed. "Yes, it is," Blake interjected. "She's saying she wants to continue, and I'm saying the special operations community would be honored to have her." Crawford sighed. "You understand the complications, Commander. The legal issues, the ethical concerns, the fact that she's supposed to be in high school." "I understand that she saved 11 American lives tonight," Blake said firmly. "I understand that without her, we'd be loading body bags instead of celebrating a successful mission. Age is just a number. Capability is what matters." "I'll need to discuss this with Langley," Crawford said. "For now, Ava, you're going home. We'll figure out the rest later." As Crawford walked away, Blake turned to Ava. "Don't let the bureaucrats kill your career before it starts. What you did tonight matters. You matter." "Thank you, sir. One more thing." Blake pulled out his satellite phone and showed her the screen. "Official after-action report. I'm listing you by call sign only Sierra 7 to protect your identity. But I want you to see what I wrote." Ava read the text. Asset Sierra 7 provided precision long-range fire support under extreme conditions. 12 confirmed enemy KIA. Multiple threats neutralized at ranges exceeding 1,100 meters in blizzard conditions. Her actions directly resulted in 0 friendly casualties and successful mission completion. This operator demonstrated skills and judgment equivalent to or exceeding our most experienced snipers. Highest recommendation for future operations. "I don't write reports like that lightly," Blake said. "You've earned every word." The SEAL team was preparing to move out to their barracks. As they passed, each operator stopped to acknowledge Ava. Some shook her hand, some just nodded, but the respect was clear and genuine. Jackson was last. "Hey, Sierra 7, one question. That mirror trick you used on the counter sniper, where'd you learn that?" "My father," Ava said. "It was his technique." "David Reyes," Jackson said, recognition in his voice. "I heard stories about him. They said he could make a rifle do things that shouldn't be possible." "He could. Looks like you inherited more than just his skills. You got his heart, too." Jackson saluted her, a formal military salute that recognized a fellow warrior. "It was an honor serving with you." As the team departed, Ava stood alone on the tarmac, watching the sun rise over the mountains. Somewhere in those peaks, snow was still falling on an abandoned compound, on spent shell casings and bloodstains, on the place where she'd learned that her father's training hadn't just been about shooting. It had been about protecting, about sacrifice, about doing the hard things when lives depended on it. The Pentagon office was surprisingly modest. Ava had expected something grandiose, but the room where she sat with Crawford was just another government space, fluorescent lights, metal desk, American flag in the corner. Across from them sat 2 generals and a colonel, all studying a classified file with her name on it. "This is unprecedented," General Morrison said. "We don't employ 15-year-olds in combat operations." "We just did," Crawford replied. "And the results speak for themselves." "The results are legally problematic. If this became public, the backlash would be severe." "Then we don't make it public," Blake said. He'd been invited to this meeting specifically to advocate for Ava's continued service. Sierra 7 remains a classified asset. Her identity stays protected. But we don't sideline someone with her capabilities out of bureaucratic discomfort. General Morrison turned to Ava. "Miss Reyes, do you understand what's being discussed here? We're talking about putting you in harm's way repeatedly, asking you to take lives, expecting you to make decisions that trained soldiers twice your age struggle with." "Yes, sir," Ava said. "I understand." "And you want to continue?" Ava chose her words carefully. "My father taught me that everyone has gifts. Some people are gifted at music or mathematics or art. I'm gifted at this, and I've seen what happens when people with gifts don't use them. Good people die who might have lived." "You're 15, the general repeated, as if saying it enough times would make the problem disappear. "I'm also the reason 11 Americans and 1 Afghan child went home alive on Christmas," Ava said quietly. "Age didn't matter on that mountain. Capability did." The room fell silent. Finally, General Morrison closed the file. "I'm going to make a recommendation that will probably end my career. I think we establish a special category for Sierra 7. Limited operational deployment. Extensive oversight. Required psychological evaluations every 60 days. And if at any point we determine this is harming her, we pull her out immediately." "Agreed?" The other officers nodded. "Miss Reyes," Morrison continued, "you'll continue your education. You'll maintain a cover identity as a normal teenager. But when we need someone with your specific skill set, In situations where conventional operators can't be employed, you'll be available. Can you live with that double life? I've been living it for 6 months, sir. Then welcome to the most classified program in the Department of Defense. Officially, you don't exist. Unofficially, you might be one of our most valuable assets. As they left the Pentagon, Blake walked with Ava to the waiting car. That went better than I expected, he admitted. What happens now? Ava asked. Now you go back to school. You take your tests. You do normal teenage things. And when we need you, Crawford will call. Will it be you again, SEAL Team 7? Blake smiled. I hope so. Your good luck. And in our line of work, we'll take all the luck we can get. They shook hands. Blake's grip was firm, respectful, the handshake of one professional to another. Your father would be proud, he said. Not just of your shooting, but of your character. You made hard choices with grace. That's rare at any age. After he left, Crawford drove Ava to the airport. Her flight back to Virginia would leave in 2 hours. You should know, Crawford said, the little girl you saved. Her name is Zara. She's being relocated to a safe house in Kabul. Because of you, she has a future. And the Taliban commander? Currently being interrogated. The intelligence he's providing will save a lot of lives. So, in a way, your shot did more than just save one girl. It started a chain reaction that's still playing out. At the airport, Crawford handed her a phone. New number, secure. Only 3 people have it, me, Blake, and your contact at the agency. Keep it charged. When we need you, we'll need you fast. I understand. One more thing. He pulled out a small box. This arrived yesterday, from SEAL Team 7. Inside the box was a challenge coin, a metal disc with the SEAL trident on one side and on the other, engraved, Sierra 7. Christmas 2024, 0 casualties. Ava felt tears threatening again. She blinked them back. They don't give those to just anyone, Crawford said. You're part of the Brotherhood now, whether you're 15 or 50. Spring had come to Virginia. Ava sat in her high school chemistry class, taking notes on molecular bonding, trying to focus on electron configurations when her mind kept drifting to windage calculations and bullet trajectories. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but she recognized the code. Weather forecast looks clear. Planning a camping trip. You interested? Blake. Another mission. She texted back. When and where? Meet your friend Thomas this evening. He'll have the details. Ava deleted the messages, as she'd been trained to do. Around her, her classmates were gossiping about prom dates and college applications. Normal concerns for normal teenagers. She wasn't normal anymore. Maybe she never had been. That evening, Crawford briefed her on the new mission. A hostage situation in Somalia. Multiple American aid workers held by a militant group. Challenging terrain. High-risk rescue operation. SEAL Team 7 specifically requested you, Crawford said. Blake says you're good luck. When do I leave? Tomorrow. But Ava. Crawford hesitated. The psychologist's report came back. She says you're handling everything remarkably well, but she's concerned about long-term impact. You're processing trauma that would break most adults. I'm fine, Ava said automatically. Are you? Really? Ava thought about the question honestly. Was she fine? She still had nightmares about that shot at the Taliban commander, about the little girl who might have died if her aim had been off by inches, about the 12 men she'd killed on Christmas. But she also thought about Zara, safe now because of what she'd done, about the SEALs who'd gone home to their families, about her father, who'd taught her that protecting others was the highest calling anyone could aspire to. I'm not fine, she admitted, but I'm doing something that matters. That's better than fine. Crawford studied her for a long moment. You're wise beyond your years. I just hope the cost of that wisdom isn't too high. My father paid the ultimate cost. I can handle the lesser one. The next morning, Ava was on a military transport heading to Djibouti. From there, she'd link up with SEAL Team 7 for mission planning. Another operation, another chance to use her gifts to protect lives. As the plane climbed through the clouds, she pulled out her father's mirror. Its scratched surface caught the sunlight streaming through the window. "Still keeping them safe, Dad," she whispered, "one mission at a time." In her pocket, the SEAL Challenge coin pressed against her leg, a reminder that she wasn't alone in this strange life she'd chosen. She had brothers now, operators who'd stand beside her when it mattered most. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude. Ava opened her mission briefing and began studying the terrain maps of Somalia. Somewhere ahead, Americans needed help, and she would be there to provide it. Because that's what snipers did. They watched over others from a distance, taking the shots no one else could take, making the sacrifices no one else could make. Her father had taught her that, and on a snowy Christmas mountain in Afghanistan, she'd proven she'd learned the lesson well. 3 years later, on her 18th birthday, Ava Reyes received an official letter from the Department of Defense. The text was brief. "Your service to the nation has been exemplary. When you're ready, if you want a place among us, it's yours. We would be honored to have you." It was signed by the commanders of SEAL Team 7, Delta Force, and the CIA Special Activities Division. Ava read the letter in her dorm room at Georgetown University, where she was studying international relations and maintaining a perfect 4 gigapascals. To her classmates, she was just another ambitious student. They had no idea that she'd completed 17 classified missions over the past 3 years, or that her call sign was known throughout the special operations community. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out 3 items: her father's mirror, the SEAL Challenge coin, and a photograph of a little Afghan girl named Zara, smiling as she started her first day at a school in Kabul. The letter asked if she wanted a place among them. She'd never left. Ava Reyes picked up her phone and dialed Blake's number. "Sir, this is Sierra 7. I'm ready for full-time duty." On the other end, she could hear the smile in Blake's voice. "Welcome home, operator. We've been waiting for you." The youngest sniper in American military history had just officially enlisted. Her legend was only beginning.